All right, welcome in here to our recruiting hour with Shea Dixon that we've been doing every Wednesday live on the Jordy Culotta Show. Make sure and hit that like button, share button, comment button if you don't mind for us. If you've not already subscribed to the channel, please do that. Daily, we're brought to you by our friends over at Hebert's Lawn and Maintenance. Hebert's Lawn and Maintenance is locally right here in Baton Rouge. They can help you out with your personal job or with your commercial job. Get in touch with our friend Blake Hebert at 225-485-8022. Got a good Facebook page that you can follow him on. Give him a like there. But with all this weather coming through here, obviously at some point the grass and the landscape is going to have to be tended to. Link up with the best, our guys over at Hebert's Lawn and Maintenance, to take care of it. They're over on Facebook. All right, lots of stuff to get to here in recruiting, as it has been a flurry of news over the past couple of days and weeks, and some stuff on the horizon that's about to pop, including Shelton Sampson, who's going to announce his college commitment right here live on the Jordy Culotta Show YouTube channel Saturday at 3:06 p.m. live from Catholic High School. Shea Dixon, who is working independently right now, is in with us every Wednesday. Lots to get to in the recruiting world. Shea D, good morning. How are you, buddy?
Doing well. We're still going with the working independently line, huh?
Do you have anything?
I just said who is in between jobs right now.
Okay, yeah. That's a
Because
good
I
one.
wouldn't say I'm working.
That's a good one, yeah.
I'm not
No,
really working.
I think that we've broken
This
a
is
little,
just
we've
hanging
broken a
out.
little news to you, which
That's
is
how-
very
That's how not working I've been.
out of our
Which has
comfort
been
zone,
nice.
and definitely feels a little strange doing it to a newsbreaker in Shea Dixon.
I came studied up this time.
I love the in-between jobs. I love that. Nothing says a 7-year degree in general studies like I'm in between jobs, and I appreciate that.
Mass comm, journalism,
Yeah,
LSU.
absolutely, bro. I hit that general studies 7 years later. I'm in between jobs. I don't know what to tell you.
Don't know what's going on.
All right, I'm good though. Lights are on. All right, Shay. We talked to Marcus Randall this morning, head coach over at Woodlawn High School. Which their roster is loaded. They just had an offensive lineman commit to Louisiana Tech. Jordan Matthews is one of the top corners in the country, and their quarterback, Ricky Collins, right now is front and center in the news cycle. He decommitted from Purdue earlier this week, and it seems like LSU has picked up steam on him lately over the past couple of weeks and months. Where do you stand on Collins, where he is now, and what do you expect from him?
I've said this on the show before, but I think you've got yourself in this position if you're LSU by making this about more than the last few weeks or even the last few months. I think that Joe Sloan has done, the quarterback's coach at LSU, has done a really good job of he was, I feel like, recruiting Ricky and talking to Ricky and getting him over to campus on the same level that he was pursuing, Dante Moore and Jaden Rashada, some of these national quarterbacks that kind of dominated the headlines when it came to LSU football recruiting a quarterback in this class. It was, guys who were up there as, top 5, 10 players and were consistently putting LSU in their lead group and were having, dialogue with Sloan and the staff and had made official visits. But I think all along he was recruiting Ricky Collins the same way. So it was never a position where you felt like, oh, we missed on a bunch of guys and now you're up type thing. It was like, look, we've been on you since back when we got the job in January. And I think that's what has kind of opened the door for this to be a flip watch or whatever you want to call it. Obviously right now he's not committed anywhere, so he didn't immediately flip. But I think over time, I just felt the Purdue thing wasn't going to stick for whatever reason, right? And that turned out to be true. And no one is surprised by that. So I think now you say, a Baton Rouge kid is now back on the market and LSU needs a quarterback, and he's been one of their priorities, and now you would argue that he's absolutely their top priority, that you're going to find a way to get it done. I mean, you toss in, he's in Baton Rouge and plays for an LSU quarterback.
Right.
And I'm not saying Marcus, who you had on the show, is steering kids in any direction, but you could have someone random as your high school coach, or you could have a former LSU quarterback, and you're a quarterback, and you're thinking about LSU. So there's conversations that can take place between them, maybe even in private, about, hey, look, this is what LSU can do for you there, and this is my experience, and this is how it's helped me, or what it's meant to me down the road being in Baton Rouge now after growing up here. So I think that they're definitely in the driver's seat. I think it's on Ricky now. How long does he want to wait until he pulls the trigger? Is he going to try to make some official visits and go look around? I'm sure he's figuring all that out. But certainly if you're LSU, you were celebrating the domino dropping that needed to. You can't get to a commitment without him decommitting from Purdue first. So that was a certain, definite positive of the past few days.
Shea, what do you make of the quarterback class in Louisiana? How uncommon is the state right now?
Well, here it depends. It doesn't depend. Should have said. When you look at these consensus rankings, which do a good job, 24/7 has one, On3's got a consensus and basically puts together everybody's rankings with an algorithm that kind of fairly spits out of this is kind of the industry's take on a kid. And I believe on both consensuses, Ricky is the number 12 quarterback in the country right now. So you've got the number 1 quarterback in the country. Eli somewhere in that range. I could look it up, but I think he's like 7 or 8. And then you've got Ricky at 12. 3 of the top 12 quarterbacks are from South Louisiana.
It's crazy.
And this is a state where the Ryan Paraloos and I think maybe Brandon Harris finishes like a top 100 guy. I don't remember. But, the Walker Howards are few and far between where there's a 5-star in the state. And I talked about that a lot last year when Walker was being recruited. I said, we're in the middle or the beginning of this, kind of rare wave that's coming of back-to-back, 2 years, 4 top 10 quarterbacks. That just doesn't happen in Louisiana. And we've debated why a million times. The teams put their – Jacoby Matthews plays quarterback at Ponchatoula.
Yep.
You're just putting your best player there and trying to get it done. So why do they not have as much as some other states do? Or why do they not have as much maybe – Louisiana's a top 5 NFL producing, state. It's a top 5 college, D1 producing state, but it's never heavy on quarterbacks. So I think this is sort of a special wave you're riding right here. And if you're LSU, you want to come away with one of them.
Yeah.
You don't want to be the time of, remember in Brian Kelly's first year, they had 3 top 10 quarterbacks nationally in the state and they didn't get any of them. You don't want that to happen. Sure. So I think there is a reason that Ricky has been pressed for a long time now.
If they do land Collins and they're able to put together successive classes of Garrett Nussmeier, Walker Howard, and then Ricky Collins, this is the best you've ever seen that room recruited, right?
Well, yeah, and you're always going to say that the other 2 elements beyond recruiting a high school quarterback are potentially recruiting a transfer and then keeping whoever's still in the program around. So they're, sitting as pretty as you could have hoped by keeping Miles and getting a transfer in Jaden Daniels, who's got 3 years of starting football at, a high level under his belt and was a, number 1 dual threat quarterback coming out. I mean, he was in the same conversation as all of those guys. Miles was a top 100 guy coming out. So in the era of the transfer portal, and Max Johnson obviously left, TJ left, they've still been able to build it up between the prior staff and this one with some true depth. That's a bunch of guys. And if you can add a Ricky Collins, that's a good, nice run of guys that you can finally sit back and develop and let competitions play out. And it doesn't leave you scrambling each year for the portal.
Joe Sloan, what did you know about him before he got here, and what type of impact has he had in recruiting since he has been on staff working the last couple of months?
I've met Joe through, I guess I probably first met him at summer camps because Coach O would obviously allow every team in the state to come down and be part of camp, and they did that again this year under Brian Kelly. So I guess to describe it, like if everyone in the state hosts camps, colleges, well, LSU's is going to be most well attended by far. So bring everyone, Southern, La Tech, UL, Grambling, Tulane, everyone that wants to come and get evals in on the in-state kids or whoever's there, because LSU's not recruiting all those kids, right?
Yeah.
So Sloan would always be there with La Tech, and then probably just run into him at a coach's convention or, get to know him from camps and kind of keep up with them and kind of with guys that La Tech might be recruiting, guys around the state. I mean, he's been here a decade, maybe more now. I think maybe 11 years at Tech, and now this 10 or 11. But that puts him in the same conversation for me as Brad Davis and Frank and Cortez, and if what you value from a Louisiana native is someone who like gets it and has been here and understands the high schools and gets the recruiting and all that. He's been here a decade. He's at Louisiana Tech. That they're recruiting all these kids. So I think that I liked the hire, and they've got him. Clearly, he's sort of in charge of quarterback recruiting. So I think he did a good job. A lot of big-time quarterbacks came on campus with all these guys, Ricky and Eli and Arch and Rashada and Dante Moore, and I'm sure there were a couple more in there. But at camp this summer, they had probably one of the better groups from anyone around the country of 2024 kids that came in and threw like all at the same time, and you got to look at them side by side or over a couple of days. So I would say his off-field work, which is the only body of work he has right now, recruiting and we don't get to see the coaching, obviously, aspect of it at practice, but recruiting and getting guys to camp and all of that, he seems to hit the ground running.
What's the future of the state look like at that position? What's the immediate future at quarterback? Is there talent? I know probably
there's not
like
an Arch coming up next year.
Yeah.
But I think this year would be a lot of these kids' junior years coming in. So we'll start to see kind of who really emerges as the top few guys in the state.
So Ricky Collins is, in your opinion, trending towards LSU, right?
I would have a hard time believing it would be anybody else.
And then tomorrow we will learn where Jaden Alsbury is going to college.
That's right.
So you're two of the top players in the state in the next 72 hours. If you throw Shelton Sampson in there,
yeah,
you know what I mean. And then Ricky Collins,
and
Jaden
we'll talk
Alsbury.
about Kylan Jackson. I think he's Monday maybe.
Kylan Jackson,
it's the 8th. I'll check on that. I'll
kind of
Google
feels
it.
like Zalance Hurd.
So you've got close. About a week of guaranteed kids announcing. Like 4 guys within the next week will be. Less than a week will be announcing.
So let's start with tomorrow. Alsbury, University High, big-time safety, been on the board for a long time here and now making the commitment. How do you feel his recruiting has gone, and where do you ultimately see him going?
I think he's going to Notre Dame. That's where all the predictions I've seen have landed him, and I've kind of always thought that to be the case as we work towards the back end, and he got through his process. I mean, they went and did 1 million tours last football season of colleges all over. And kind of got to look at things. And he had done the same through his brother's recruitment, and there he was being recruited by every top school in the country, ended up at Auburn. But, he got a view of recruiting through that lens. So, I've made my thoughts here clear a number of times. I think if there were like even a poster child for my theory on U High and why some of these kids leave, it would be Jaden Alsbury, because you go to school there your entire, and again, for people, this is obvious to some people, but to others don't know, U High is in the middle of LSU's campus. Their football practice facility, field, and where they play on Friday nights is next to LSU.
Yeah, no, I always say if you kick a PAT at U High and you kick it into the LSU side, you kick it onto the practice field.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And then you think kids like that who go from when they were young all the way through high school at that school, when you say, okay, now you're going to college, you're just on the exact same campus. It doesn't feel like a very college feel. I'm not getting away. And, even these kids in Louisiana, if you're from New Orleans or Sinlaw or Shreveport, going down to Baton Rouge,
that's a big deal.
Mom and dad ain't there. Ain't nobody there. It's new to me. This is fresh. And then I say Alsbury is the poster child for it. His dad's been in administration forever. Everyone who goes to basketball games or football games or whatever, when you see Verge, his kids have grown up. They keep getting taller and taller, and eventually it's oh, damn, these kids are D1 football players. When they're done with school, they go to the basketball arena and sit there and watch the game and hang out. Not that that's not fun or whatever, but there's got to be a point at 18 or so where you're hey, I'm kind of cool with going out and seeing something else. And it's then dad played football here and everything like that. So I'm not surprised at all that it's an out-of-state school.
Shelton Sampson will.
If it's an out-of-state school, maybe he'll shock us and pick LSU.
Yeah. But Notre Dame seems like the lead school. Shelton Sampson will announce on Saturday. This has been a kind of a long, winding recruitment that has seen some very highs.
And there's a link up with the Jordy Culotta show here,
right? Looking forward to
I got
that,
the official press release.
Making our debut. we're getting into the recruiting game, or the announcement game. We're not going to follow recruiting, but we'll definitely show up when you want to make the news.
Yeah.
And we'll be at Catholic High School on Saturday. The announcement will come at 3 o'clock. And Shelton Sampson, best wide receiver in the state, one of the best in the country. LSU, Florida State, Alabama, Texas A&M. How do you see it?
I think it's trended to LSU for a little bit now. I think he always kind of thought he may do something before his senior year, and obviously now he's decided to do that. I think he's elite. I think he's one of those guys that if you're talking about locking down the state, you can't let him go somewhere else.
Yeah.
I mean, LSU's bread and butter. If you want to sit around and keep bragging all day that you got Jarvis and Odell, and now you've got Chase and Jefferson, two of the best, top 5 receivers in the league basically right now. And you've got Terrace Marshall, who can maybe come into his own in year 2, and Chark and Gage signing contract. I mean, you're flexing your muscles that, you're LSU and you got the beast receivers. All those guys are from Louisiana.
Yeah.
When you lose a Louisiana receiver, what happens? Devonta Smith goes and catches a game-winning touchdown against Georgia and then wins the Heisman. And he's a great NFL player. And these are the type of dudes that you fight to get to make sure that you keep kind of that pipeline going of being elite receiver. So there's no way for me you're letting a Catholic High kid get out. So I feel confident it's LSU.
He is like a freaky tester, like the testing stuff. It was the pro day that Gabe Fertitta had on Catholic High's campus because of COVID, and there were no camps that summer, that Shelton Sampson really blew up, right? Didn't he have like the 40-plus inch vertical, ran the sub 4.4 40? I mean, that's kind of where this thing all started.
That's the point. It started was Fertitta, who was at Catholic at the time, in the middle of COVID, put on a mock combine. Well, his whole staff did. They did a great. Dixon McMakin was out there grinding, handing out 40 times. It was like a college event for real.
Yeah.
And they invited all the because coaches at that time couldn't come out and evaluate kids. So he's like, look, my kids need to get recruited, whether it's to, Army or LSU. Like, I've got to get their eyes on these kids. And he said, look, obviously the Shelton kid's the best one we got. And he goes out there and runs some hand-timed, like 4 threes, and is wowing the crowd and making some good catches. And as video and, tweets go out about what he did and verified results, it was like, I can't remember the teams, but it was like, Tulane just offered, it was like bang, bang, bang. And within like a few days, Mickey Joseph had offered. And then his recruitment sort of just skyrocketed. And kudos to that Catholic staff, because a lot of kids' recruitments were just sort of dead in the middle of COVID because maybe they didn't even have a season. Then coaches weren't on the road and there were no summer kids. It was like never a chance to see what you look like until schools like that were like, all right, we'll just do one here at school. Media, come if you want to, and paid off.
Yeah. Kylan Jackson, safety, Zachary, going to announce on Monday what his college of choice is going to be. LSU, another school that seems like has a really good shot here.
Yeah, and I think LSU had been consistently recruiting him. Even though you saw them popping and getting commits from other safeties and DBs nationally from outside the state. Ashton Stamps came to camp inside the state and got an offer. They were still pushing for him. They were still hosting him. They were doing all that. And A&M, Oregon, Tennessee, a lot of schools have been in that mix. But I think there might be one, Michigan, I think was his other one. But he's a Zachary kid, and I think he's in a position where they've been present enough. They've kind of pushed him enough. He wants to shut it down before his senior season. LSU's getting some momentum on the trail. They're popping some in-state kids. All of them notice that. They all see that. So, I think, a week out, or I think it's like the 8th or 7th, one of those. But coming up, that it'll be LSU. Be surprised if it wasn't.
Big offensive lineman popped last week for LSU out of St. Aug in Tyree Adams. That happened on Friday afternoon. to start off the visit. Adams is one of 2 offensive linemen from the state of Louisiana that I think LSU has circled, the other one being Zalance Hurd out of Neville. Before we get to Hurd and what's going on with him, what did you make of the news of Adams popping to LSU?
Huge. I mean, I love him. He's, again, another top 10 prospect in the state, but I think that with Brian Kelly and the success you've seen at Notre Dame of first and second round, top 100 draft picks on the O-line and guys starting in the NFL and being really, really good, he's kind of more than once said, hey, look, I know what I'm doing. We have a formula there, and we develop, and we know what we're looking for in recruiting, and they went out and got Paul Mabenga, who's, everybody seems to love him as a prospect, an athletic kid. And then you pop Tyree Adams, who fits that same mold of, I don't have it right in front of me, but, the 6'4", 280, just clean.
Yeah.
You don't need him to come in and shed a bunch of weight. You just need him to come in and get stronger and adjust to being a part of a college program. But I thought it was, look, his measurables are great. He's exactly what you want in an offensive tackle. And much like quarterback, I've always said that the Leo Collinses and the Will Campbells and even in Emory Jones, they ain't coming every year nonstop in Louisiana. You're getting the Trey Turners and those guys every so often, but for them to be able to get those 2 guys this past year is kind of the top O-linemen in the rankings in the class. But then to this year go ahead and start things off with Tyree Adams, who he had offers from everywhere. Yeah, he could have gone wherever. Yeah. And the new staff kind of worked him and got him in. And now I think the focus turns to Hurd. Does he shut things down before his senior year? He was just at Florida State during that little small window of open period before it went dead again this past weekend. But he's been to LSU enough. He camped there. His Pops was with him. They all got to spend time around the staff. So, Will Campbell's going to be on him, and as a Neville guy, I think that the press of the in-state kids' dominoes continuing to fall kind of really puts LSU into a better and better position as you kind of want to continue to close with some of these guys. And I'll say this, I made mention of this on Twitter yesterday just because I was glancing up and down of kind of who getting Tyree Adams and then obviously moving forward with what they could have coming. You want to lock up the state, but it's always a bonus if you're really present at Neville and St. Aug and Zachary and Woodlawn, which is putting together really good teams, and Catholic High of Baton Rouge,
Carr,
and the teams, the high schools I all just named, those are the guys we're talking about that could give them a commitment in the next, whether it's a couple of weeks or months or whatever it might be, in this in-state class that everyone wants to kind of hold to such a very high level of importance on a wish list of recruiting. You want it to be in-state, and you've got to get the right guys, but it's even better when the right guys are at big-time programs that are always going to be churning out big-time athletes.
Yeah, this will be back-to-back classes, right, that Brad Davis puts together if he can land Hurd, and he's already got Mubanga, and he put Adams into the – I mean, that's – we were talking like the quarterback successive classes. That's what Davis is ultimately doing here, right? I mean, if he's able to put Hurd in the boat, that's – 2 back-to-back really good classes.
Well, and think about what he was – and I heard a lot of good things about Fitzgerald West as a backup center. But think about what he did last year. Obviously, you got Bo Borderline out of Newman, which isn't – it's got Odell and Bo and Arch and, Will Randall at tight end. Like, they'll have some D1 players, but not as often. But your other O-linemen were Campbell from Neville, Jones from Catholic High Baton Rouge, which now you're turning around and in the next class needing guys from both those schools. We need Shelton Sampson. We need – Zalance Hurd. Well, we've got guys on the team right now who are fresh out the program. And then the other being Fitzgerald, who went to LCA, which is they're winning more state titles than anyone in any class. I mean, I think they went like 5 in a row at one point or 4 in a row, something like that. So that's the kudos to them for not only getting the good prospects, but plucking them out of good schools.
Yeah, no doubt. Normal Guy has a question, #AskShay. It's about a running back out of Texas in Parker Jenkins. I'd imagine that LSU's pretty secure on their running back class here with Holly and Jackson.
They were recruiting him out over the spring and into the summer, but I think that there became a point where things shifted, and Frank Wilson said, let's go get the 2 in-state guys locked in. Let's see if we can do it. And they did. And they got Caleb Jackson and Trey Holly. So I think you're at a point now where you're about to enter senior seasons. You'll watch a little film there, but you'll get a feel for what the running back room is, what you're going to have for the future, and if you feel comfortable with just those 2 guys or if you need to make a move for one more. So I wouldn't say anything imminent there.
LGZ, hashtag Ask Shea. Any word if the staff could be close to offering offensive lineman in-state prospect Ethan Fields out of Dutchtown?
He's an interesting one that I've seen his stuff. I like him. I think there's a lot of college coaches out there that have been monitoring him closely. It's interesting because they took Mabenga, and then it seems like DJ Chester is a guy that obviously they're heavily involved with. There's a few out-of-state kids that they're still recruiting, but you've popped Tyree Adams. You've gotten really into the Zalance Herd recruitment. We'll see if Caden Jones over at De La Salle kind of really comes into the fold or not. I think he's just one of those people that they really want to see. All right, where are you at those first few games as a senior? And if it's, hey, he looks apart, then all these other numbers really don't matter. We're taking him and we're putting him, in the class or try to put him in the class. But I wouldn't think that you're kind of at that odd point, and we're back into a dead period where you're not making a ton of new offers if you've got the ability to say, hey, if I wait a month, I can get a few games of film in. And that's not the case for just him. That's the whole board, and they also, when you get a 3 or 4 months worth of the first film in, you might be recruiting a dude and say, yo, this kid in New Jersey we've been high on, but I just saw his first 4 games. I think we're good on that. We can go after some other guys. And then he comes off the board, So with evaluations of a senior year, there's always room for movement and new offers.
So we've talked about some of the top guys in the state. Shelton Sampson will make his announcement on Saturday. Jaden Alsbury will make his announcement tomorrow. Zalance Herd will wait and see whether or not he's going to make an announcement before his senior season. We mentioned Kylan Jackson, the big safety out of Zachary.
He's August 8th.
He will make his on August 8th. How about some other guys like this name throws me for a loop, but is it Kai Preen?
Kai Preen, yeah.
Preen?
Yeah, and he's at St. James now. He's another that they were rumbling, because I think I'd seen Sam Spiegelman mention it at On 3, that there's a chance he might say, hey, I'm ready to go ahead and shut things down before my senior year. And some SEC teams have been pursuing him, but LSU has been one of them, and I think they've tried to sell him on, being part of the class and kind of helping round out the receiver group. Because if you get Shelton Sampson and you get Kai Preen, you've already got Jalen Brown, and then you have Kyle Parker over in Texas. I think you feel good about where you're at, and then you can kind of see if you have to make a move or not from there. But obviously you have to get Preen and Sampson in first, and that starts with the Sampson domino on Saturday.
Jordan Matthews seems like he's getting close, right?
Yeah, and it seems like A&M is the team that everybody's talking about there. It just, I don't know if things just didn't ever heat up enough between LSU and Matthews, but there were a number of teams from around the country recruiting him pretty heavily throughout, and I think ultimately it seems like he's warmed up to A&M the most.
What about these out-of-state guys like the West Weeks?
He's supposed to be good,
right? Does it come down to like him and Tackett Curtis on how they're evaluating that position? Is that how you kind of look at something like that when you come down to numbers?
No, I think they would have taken Weeks no matter what. I think they would have taken Tackett Curtis and Weeks. Weeks is a guy. He went to Georgia camp and they said he tore it apart this summer, and then all of a sudden Georgia kind of started really turning up the heat. And just within the month he committed to LSU. His brother's here, obviously. That's a guy I think. I know he made a recent rise in the rankings. Let's see. I'll let you know where he's at right now. Again, he's out of Oconee County, which is where Max and Jake Johnson went. Obviously,
one of our guys.
Your boys.
We got one of our guys down there with you,
Hey, Coach, you got one more. You got another one of our guys. I know it didn't work out last time.
We're making fun of SEC Media Day questions. SEC Media Day questions are the best.
Turned recruiting. Thank God they don't let him ask about recruiting. Coach, I know how it was at Oconee when you lost them boys.
Coach, I'm telling you, we got a sophomore DB. Flips his hips as good as Dion. You'll be coming to Marietta within a couple of days, I promise you, Coach. Now, here's my question. Who were we talking about? Jordan Matthews?
Whit Weeks.
Whit Weeks.
Top
Whit
two.
Weeks.
He's a top 4-star, top 250 player, top 20 linebacker.
Yeah.
Top 20, 25 linebacker.
Okay.
I think a solid senior season. You see him rise even more. And then I think he's viewed in the lens of what LSU views him as, hey, this dude's actually one of the better backers out there. Good player.
Yeah, absolutely. So how does this? They're at the intersection of recruiting and regular season beginning. How do you shift the balance from a coaching staff standpoint of kind of focusing now really all of it on your team?
I think they want to have built up the off-field department enough that it carries you in times like these, right? Like, and that's kind of this in a similar way, not obviously the same as what spring ball and fall camp is. It's where now obviously in fall camp it's dead, in spring it wasn't. So like kids were on campus every day, but coaches can't be just hanging out with them all day. They've got practice, and they've got film, then they've got prep for the next day, whatever it might be, team, coaching meetings, all that. So you have the off-field staff. I mean, you've had a lot of those guys on here, Belton, Arcement, Sherman Morris, Corey. I don't want to leave anybody. There's a lot of people just on that side. And then obviously all the recruiting personnel girls. I mean, there's people you have in place that kind of help all that go behind the scenes. So I think when you get into game day, they want to have, like, this staff, I know from the top down is excited about, hey, we want to bring some kids in, some select kids. We know Nicholas Harbor is one of them, but we want to be able to bring kids in and experience a game day in Tiger Stadium, because I think they're just excited about it. They're excited about the idea of we could pitch. Like, we just came, Brian Kelly's got to think, I'm coming to Tiger Stadium. I want recruits to come to the game, and I want to show them around and say, look, this is what it's all about type thing. Like, Notre Dame can pack it out, but no one's saying Notre Dame Stadium is some unbelievable atmosphere for recruits to have to see, and that's kind of the lure that comes with Tiger Stadium. So I do think they'll have some official visits for games. They've already got some on the books, but on those weekends, when they're with the team for team meetings and going to the stadium and playing the game and then meeting with the media and then breaking down some film after, there'll be time in there for recruiting, but kind of the off-field people will do the heavy lifting, and that's the same at every school. It's just how it operates.
Any movement, any update, Derek Williams?
I don't know.
Nothing.
I don't think anything's too
in between
new,
jobs. In between jobs, my fault.
Still
between jobs.
Look,
between gigs.
It wasn't long ago that he committed to Texas, so I think you can still feel
he's up, right? He's up.
He's got his feet up right now, chilling.
Yeah,
I think as time goes on, if you're LSU, you hope we win some games, we get some in-state recruits, our class gets some real buzz around it, and all of a sudden there is more of an appeal to stay home.
How much does it matter what you look like over the next couple of months from a college team standpoint, especially for Kelly, right, in his first year? I mean, how much are the commits and potential recruits, potential commits, evaluating just what LSU looks like?
I've always said that I don't believe that recruits are as invested as we all are, and the fans. Like, no recruits, and we hit them up after games. What'd you think of it? I was out with friends. I didn't watch it. Or, I watched it. It was tough loss.
I heard they need me.
Tough loss, whatever it might be. None of them are ever like, bro, that's the third week in a row that we, ran it on second long. Like, I'm not going to be part of something like that. Yeah. Like, the fans are like done, fire the coach level. The kids are, and the thing I always tell people to remember, minus a few kids out there, every kid loses like once every 2 or 3 games. Like, they don't look at a team, an LSU team they lost, and they're like, can't roll with them. It's just like, right. I think a lot of it is they need me. Yeah. When I get there, we be balling though. Right. So, but I do think that on-field success, you've got a brand new head coach. You want to be in the national spotlight. You don't want to be out of the race for the SEC in mid-October. You want to be playing into November with valuable games, and everyone's talking about you. And you got a couple players up for some awards. And I'm not saying you have to win the national championship. I'm just saying you're back to being competitive and not just sort of the 10th highlight that rolls through SportsCenter when they're like, and State beat LSU today,
Right,
and it's like 1 minute of highlights, and Mike Leach gets some airtime, and they move on, and you're sort of out of sight, out of mind.
Shea Dixon, he is in between jobs right now, and every Wednesday on the Jordy Culotta Show, he answers your recruiting questions. You can follow him on Twitter at Shea Dixon. The hashtag is Ask Shea. That is an update here on the latest. Anything, Stewie, we left out? Anything you want to catch up on? No, we're good. All right.
He's caught up.
What's that?
He's deep into the Ricky Collins game. He's just riding low right now.
Big Panther.
I've been
Big
in
Panther
deep since
fan.
last year, though. I was there when he committed.
He wants people. Are you still letting people get on the bandwagon? Or you?
Look, if I want to get on, get on.
Has
No,
it
we've been
left-
on.
It's left the station.
Yeah, we've been
No
on
more?
for a while.
Oh,
I've
y'all
kinda-
been on.
Yeah, I've always recognized Collins as the guy that they were going to get. I don't think anybody ever thought they had a shot with Manning and Holstein.
Or of course not. And then even Rashada and Dante
Right.
Moore felt like.
Right.
But that's why I said Joe Sloan and this staff did a very good job of making sure everyone that they ultimately felt could end up being in this class was being recruited.
Yeah.
Pretty similarly.
Yeah. And I mean, you go watch Collins play. There's not a
Boy, that's what I'm saying.
difference between them guys, man. I mean, it's
And he's like a dog.
yes,
He got invited to Elite 11.
and shined.
I think, too, that I know one thing from talking to college coaches, and this is not from this is, in fact, what I'll reference isn't even directly from this isn't LSU. This is a coach in another college. Said there's a lot that you don't see on film about Ricky that teams love. Like
I bet.
how he carries himself,
I
how
bet.
kids look at him in the locker room. Like those are important traits when you're getting into a college quarterback room, and things might not go your way all the time, or you might be the man and have to deal. It is what it is at different levels, and a lot of people just said like this is the type of kid you take. You don't let him get out of the state.
Gulf South has a question for you about a quarterback out of Ohio. You know anything about Drew Novak?
Is he? I wonder if he's for next year.
Because he asked Shea why he doesn't have any stars. No, class of 23. 6'6", 210 out of Mount Orab, Ohio. Plays at Western Brown High School. I don't know on that Gulf South. I don't know if we can provide any clarity on that.
Yeah, I don't see any. It seems like he's only got a couple small. He's got a couple small offers. I bet that's why he's carrying a 2-star rating on 24/7 with offers from Glenville State, Notre Dame College, and Stetson. Maybe that's why.
Hooper, too.
Guess he hasn't blown up quite yet. Got some good stats though.
All right, stay safe in the rain out there. It's crazy out there on the streets, man.
Flooding.
Yeah, flooding everywhere.
I thought that the Corolla was done.
That's all right. That's all right. She made it.
No,
She made
100%.
it, yeah.
You
Never really
got to make
doubted
the
her.
right decisions.
Yeah.
Turn around, don't drown type stuff. I mean,
No doubt.
it's still going out there.
Yeah, I don't think it's letting up. Even though we will have flag football practice this afternoon at 5 o'clock. I don't want any text messages from any parents about what we're going to do with the weather. We're
Trying to build
on.
a team here.
Outside of a Category 5, we're playing. We're running. So I'll see you all at practice this afternoon at 5 o'clock. Shay, I'll see you next Wednesday.
Wait, what's the old Moffitt saying?
What's that?
Rain. What is the Moffitt saying?
What was it?
We need to tell them like rain, sleet, snow,
Yeah.
piss, blood, or blood. Gotta come to practice.
Got to be there.
I like his, if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready.
That's right.
We're practicing.
We're in.
We're practicing today.
Outside of a Category 5, we're running. All right, we'll see you tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. Hit that like button, share button, comment button.